Hey everybody, David the AI Guide here, and today we're going to talk about a podcast I've been listening to, and that podcast is pretty new, maybe a month, a little over old, and it's from MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and it's all about AI, but it's particularly about some of the things that AI is being used for these days that not everyone is aware of. So I think there's been a lot of press that police departments have been using them, and there's a lot of controversy about the police use of these AI algorithms because of the error rates, which tend to be high, and misidentifying someone in terms of accusing them of committing a crime, especially if it's a serious crime, is a big deal, especially for the person who had nothing to do with it, who all of a sudden is getting arrested because an algorithm picks them out of a crowd somewhere. So that really brings up the subject of how quickly regulations can be developed to control new technologies. And AI is going to be the archetypal advantage of that. What does that mean, archetypal? It means it's like the example of all examples. And the reason why is because of what we've been talking about already, which is the exponential rate at which AI is improving and increasing in use. So government institutions are structured generally to be conservative and to move slowly. Conservative in their approach, not politics necessarily, but just to oriented towards maintaining the status quo. Let's put it that way, as a meaning of conservative. So these institutions do not react quickly to new technological developments. And this is going to become a bigger and bigger issue as new technologies are invented and commercialized very, very quickly. And some of them are going to have real impacts on society in general and privacy in particular. So the MIT podcast called In Machines We Trust, which I can recommend to you because it's very well done and very easy to understand. They talk to a lot of the people who either use it, meaning they're police officers or FBI's agents and stuff like that, or they talk to people who have been victimized by it. And one of the people they talk about is a man who got accused of some very serious crimes and misidentified, and it was accidental when they arrested him that they mentioned that an AI algorithm had identified him, because most police departments don't discuss the fact that they're using AI. And in some states, they've started pushing state legislation to make police officers disclose that they're using an AI algorithm to identify you for a crime. And the reason why, of course, is because of the high error rates. So here is the thing. Like everything else, there's two sides to every story. And the other side of that story is there's a lot of research now on eyewitness testimony. And unless the testimony is taken almost at the time that something happens, the error rates in eyewitness testimony get very, very high. So if eyewitness testimony, which is the traditional path to proving someone or did something or building a case to arrest them, is very faulty over time, and AI algorithms are faulty, particularly with regard to minorities, and in some of the cases they talk about in this podcast were affected minorities, then we start asking ourselves, well, what's the difference? What's the difference between a human misidentifying someone who still nevertheless goes to jail versus a machine. Well, I think there is a difference. At least some people would think so. I think so, right? Just being a human, I'm a little more comfortable with human error than I am with machine error. In fact, one of the big pitches for AI originally was accuracy and that it never made mistakes, right? But we now know that's really not true. That AI being software, that software is programmed by someone. People make programming errors in software all day, every day, not intentionally, but it happens. And in particular, with regard to AI algorithms, they introduce their biases. So that is why certain uses of AI have already started to fall out of favor. And we've talked about one of those examples, and that example is AI as a screening tool for job applicants. Why has this started to fall out of favor? Well, because the algorithms discriminate against women, or they discriminate against minorities, or they discriminate against certain random things that it picks out of your resume. And you don't really want that. If it was logical, like the job requirement is you have to have a 4-year college degree, and the AI kicks your resume out because you didn't have a 4-year degree, that's one thing. But for an AI to kick you out because you're female or minority is a whole different thing. So in talking about all these issues, MIT talks about the need for timely and effective regulation. And they're not the only ones talking about this subject. You hear a lot of very famous people like Elon Musk talk about these issues, and a lot of other people. So AI, as we've discussed, is going to have huge benefits for society and for us individually. One simple example we've already talked about is much, much faster development of vaccines against diseases, which is a key reason why vaccines are already in clinical trials for COVID-19 so fast. Going back 100 years to the Spanish flu, which was the last time there was a global pandemic on this scale, they never accomplished a vaccine. The disease just sort of petered out after 3 years. So AI can have tremendously beneficial applications, and I spend a lot of time talking about that. But I also need to point out that AI is not perfect. AI makes mistakes, and those mistakes must be able to be recognized by a human so that they can be corrected. And to the degree that these mistakes might affect a broad segment of society, there needs to be societal rules regarding the use of the AI in that circumstance. So all these are very important topics, and many of you are going to really care about this topic. You may not right now, but I can tell you for sure that in 10 to 20 years, you're going to care a lot about it once the tidal wave of job displacements hits for routine jobs that are easily automated. Then you're really going to care about what AI gets used for and what it doesn't get used for. And by the way, let me make one thing perfectly clear. AI and job automation is not just a blue-collar thing at all. In fact, many white-collar professions are going to be automated out of existence. For example, much of what lawyers do will be fully automated by AI, and lawyers will go away except for in-court litigation. An AI can write a contract for business or can write a legal opinion for a court case way better than a human can already, and in 5 more years it won't even be comparable. Why? Again, because an AI can read 5 million opinions about a certain legal issue, whereas a human can read maybe 2 or 3. So white-collar jobs are going to be heavily automated too. And another one that we've talked about is accounting. So these are going to be broad-based changes, and people will care what the societal rules are regarding AI. So this is a good time to start talking about it. A lot of times stuff we'll talk about, like today, is just to get you thinking, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do today, trying to get you to think about the pluses and minuses of AI and what that might mean for you now and in the future. So that's it for today. I'll see you on Saturday. If you like this video and you found it interesting, please like it and subscribe. And if you really liked it, share it with your friends. And thanks a lot for watching the AI Guide on YouTube.